Hi Tarot Tribe, it's Ethany, and today we are at part 3 of my Tarot for Beginners series. And today I'm going to be looking at the sections of a tarot deck. So we're now diving into the structure within the structure of tarot. So if you missed the first 2 parts of the series, you can find part 1 where I talk about the difference between tarot decks and oracle decks in the in the description below over at ethany.com, or part 2 where we look at the mainstream tarot systems, also in the description below or over at ethany.com. And as before I begin, as with everything I offer to you, take what resonates with you and simply leave the rest. As with this entire series, I am using a Rider-Waite-Smith system deck. I've got 2 decks in front of me today that I have sectioned out. So if I remember looking down, I'm just trying to make sure I pick up the right tarot section that I'm talking about. I'm a one-woman show, so I'm doing this all from my little tarot reading space. And please also know that I believe that the way in which we experience and view the tarot is personal and evolving. This is how I view the structure of the deck and some things that I would love to offer to you for you to consider as a way for you to add to your tool of how you look at tarot. I also believe that each tarot card has a multitude of meanings and has a multiple layered system to it. They are very deep, well, I believe they are. So I view each of the tarot cards as important as the next, even if in the hierarchy of the deck, it places it in a certain order. So I understand that there is a lot going on with the tarot system. One of the great things about the beautiful, wonderful world of tarot is that there is so much information out there on tarot, and you have a lot of different voices in the tarot community who are offering information, whether that's through blogging or videos or books and decks. You may come across another tarot professional's breakdown of the deck and really dig the way that they look at things too. And that is another wonderful thing. Every offer has something to share. So here's how I break down the tarot deck and how I view each different element of a tarot deck. So first of all, we have the Major Arcana. So the Major Arcana, and I'm using the Centennial Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and I'm also going to be using my Bad Bitches Tarot because I can. So the first is the Major Arcana. This is the section of the deck that is numbered with Roman numerals at the top, and it's also the part of the deck that has a proper noun title, such as the Fool or the Star, the Magician. There are traditionally 22 of these cards in the Major Arcana, and it begins with 0 being the Fool and completes with 21, the World. Now, a quick note on that is that some people do put the structure of the Major Arcana with the Fool outside of the structure of the Major Arcana. They see it as completely outside of that because it is a 0. It doesn't really have a numerical value. And that's cool. If that is how you choose to do it, I'm just, as I said, offering mine. So as I'm going through the deck here, you can see that they're all numbered and they all have a title. So it's usually a pretty easy way to discern whether you're working with the Major Arcana or a different element of the card. Now, I see the Major Arcana as archetypes of the divine. These are massive lessons. These are the big, juicy, breathtaking, I don't understand, life-shaking, questioning, you're very the way you very view life kind of stuff. And I actually also believe that the Major Arcana are lessons that we may never understand. We have these little vessels on earth that can only, process so much information with our limited senses, right? So we may never actually understand them. And I feel as though that is part of it. That is part of being human, is to maybe not fully understand the way in which the intelligent universe works. We're still going to try and figure it out, but we don't necessarily understand why. These cards, these energies have a massive amount of collective energy behind them, and they are also cross-cultural in energy. If not by name, it certainly will be by energy. So by that I mean, if you look at the Empress, right? She represents the divine motherhood. She, along with a lot of other stuff like abundance, fertility, creativity, community, luxury, you name it, she's that thing. But she is the divine feminine. She is motherhood. She is the mother. Now, if your ass is born on this planet, you have a mother, whether it's a biological mother, whether it's you're an adopted mother, whether it's your grandmother who is more like your mother. You have a mother archetype in your life. Your relationship may not be great with it, but you still have it. So no matter what culture you come from, what background you have, you are still going to have a mother archetype. Same as the emperor, who is the father archetype. Now, in some cultures, the word emperor and empress also have a lot of power. In others, they have absolutely nothing. So there is a lot there. Hierophant, the same thing. Religion, that represents religion, organizations, institutions like schools and government. No matter where you are in the world, you have that information, or you have that archetype somewhere in your life. So that's what I mean about cross-cultural. They are bigger than we are in our lifetimes. So these are those outside forces that we don't have a lot of control of in a way. We don't have a control of death, for example, as an archetype, and we don't have a control of other people in our lives, and we barely or rarely get to exercise a lot of control over very large institutions, etc. And we're probably not going to understand every element of them either. So, for example, let's take the archetype of institutions of the Hierophant. Now, if you were born into a religious family, into a family that has a traditional religion, you are going to understand that archetype in a different way than someone who has not had a religious upbringing. If you are part of the clergy of a religion, you're going to understand an aspect of that a lot more than someone else who has, who maybe has had a terrible example or interaction with that clergy or with that religion. So because of our personal preferences, because of our personal perspectives and experiences, we are probably never going to know every element of that archetype too. And that's something to keep into consideration when you work on that. So I did talk a little bit about the Empress before, which I popped in my notes. So this is how I view and see the Major Arcana. Now, I'm not going to go through every card and the archetypes of that because that's a lot of information, but I did want to share with you my offerings there. Okay, that's the first section of a tarot deck, and you'll find that a lot of courses, like mine included, and a lot of books will start their journey with you through the tarot with the Major Arcana. Today I've got ginger and lemon tea, and it says, "You do not need love, you are the love. You got the love." So there you go. If you're watching this, that's a message for you today. You don't need love, you are the love. Okay, the second part is the Minor Arcana. Now this takes up the rest of the tarot deck. It is split up into 4 suits, and it goes into from the Ace to 10. Now I actually do section out my court cards to my Minor Arcana, and the reason why I do that is because I believe that the court is a different part of the tarot altogether. Okay, oh no, where did my ace go? Acey Wacey, give me a dream. There's my ace. I put these together and then I, Anthony. So it starts with ace, the aces. We've got here the Ace of Pentacles, and it goes all the way up to the lovely number 10 of Pentacles. Okay. So I'm just going to go through a few of the Minor Arcana cards while I'm chatting away about them. I see the Minor Arcana as how we learn and experience the Major Arcana in our everyday lives. This is the manifestation of the spiritual in our lives, if you choose it to be spiritual. If not, it is a manifestation of these larger energies at play through the larger archetypes in our lives. It brings the big picture down into our daily lives for us to experience it. So we can look at something like the Empress as this nurturing, abundant energy. But if we have that comes along with the Five of Pentacles, then we're looking at this from a very different perspective, and we're experiencing the other side of nurturing, or the other side of luxury, in lack and not having enough. It doesn't mean that every card necessarily has a connection, like a one connection to one Major Arcana card. They all connect. They all have an element of each other in it. The Minor Arcana shows us that everything is sacred and that there are lessons that we can learn in everything. They show us the material world, love and relationships, work, spirituality, health, thoughts and ideas. And every elemental aspect of that, which I'm going to cover in this video too, is a house for each one of those ideals, or which each one of those journeys that we take as a human. They reflect our daily experience as human beings, both individually and collectively. Okay, so when we start to deal, some of us are more aligned with working with lots of people, and some people are more like the lone wolves. Although we are all one tribe, right? I'd love for that to be super true. So we all have dealt with heartbreak, right? And we can deal with heartbreak on a number of levels. It comes how that's dealt with on a spiritual level, how that's dealt with on a physical level, how that's dealt with on an emotional level, how it's dealt with on a did I say physical? Maybe. How that's dealt with in our work. Heartbreak is transcendent, and pain is transcendent. Then we've got the the card of being mean and being a bully and vindictive, or really wanting to cause someone harm through our words. So the Minor Arcana holds, for me, a ton of power, and I really do view it as being just as important as the Major Arcana. It's just a different aspect of life, and it is really one that I feel is more attainable and more accessible, because we'll see probably more of ourselves in the representations and depictions of the Minor Arcana than we will maybe in the Major Arcana. We may see glimpses of it or understand it in one level, but I do feel as though this is me in front of like the chocolate shelf at the shop. For example, like I get that one. That's what I'm saying. It's a little bit more relatable. And then finally, the court cards, my beautiful beloved 16 cards of the court. I see the tarot court as the people and personalities of the tarot and in our lives. They are also the aspects of our personal archetypes. So while we had the universal archetypes in the Major Arcana, we now have our personal archetypes in the tarot court, which is one of the reasons why I am very excited to be writing about that right as we speak. Maybe you've come across this video and my book has already been published, but there we go. So they are kings, queens, knights and pages, or a different aspect of, depending on the different type of deck, but in the Rider-Waite-Smith it is those kings, queens, knights and pages. And this, in my deck, as you can see, they are all women, because I believe the tarot court is about title and about initiation, about mindset, about the person we are and the archetypes we embody, and less about our genitalia, or how we view how we identify, how we self-identify. There's a whole discussion around that, and I talk about that in my book actually. So in some texts, the tarot court may get included in the Minor Arcana, but despite all this, I do see them as their own unique group, and they are a part of the elemental structure of the Minor Arcana as well. So we have the Major Arcana, the big guns, the Minor Arcana, everyday magic, and then the court cards, our personal guns. That was a weird way of putting it, but our people in our lives are our personal archetypes. And then on top of that, weaving into all of this, we are going to have the tarot elements. So the tarot elements also come into play with the Major Arcana. And depending on what tradition you read about or where you get your information, the elemental dignitaries will change depending on that system. Okay, so I'm not going to go through each one of those for the Major Arcana, but do know that the Major Arcana do have their own elemental associations. It's, like Mercury, for example, is attached to the Lovers, which is air. So it will depend on the astrology and all that kind of stuff with it. And that is another whole series of videos to go into. We don't have time for it on that one. But the Major Arcana do have elemental dignitaries. So the Minor Arcana and the Tarot Court are a part of these beautiful suits that the Tarot deck is also broken into. So the tarot elements will add a different offering to each deck and each card that you pull out. How the energy of the card interacts with the element of each other, of the spread, of the question, of the personalities that you have in the Tarot Court, in the Major Arcana archetypes that are presented to you, is going to give you a lot of information as well. Different tarot decks have different elemental associations, and there is a lot of discussion of whether like swords are fire or they're air, but my basic elemental associations are swords are air, covering aspects of the mind, thoughts, communication, inspiration, mental health, clarity, morals, and words. So these are our beliefs. These are the things that we have inside us that shape our existence, and the words that we use, they are creators. So that is how I view the swords, and it is my absolute favorite suit to talk about and to write about. I think a lot of people find it very challenging. Being a Gemini, I find it extremely interesting, and I could talk about tarot all day, but I could also talk about the swords all day. Then we have the wands, and we have here the remembering the court is inside of the elemental associations, and the wands have to do with fire. For me, we have power, change, challenges, willpower. They are also heavily associated with creative work in the world, our actual career and our work. Now, some people get that mixed up with the pentacles, but I'm going to put you on the straight and narrow on that one. And all of the things that we do to inspire and our legacy that we want to leave in the world. It is a spiritual suit as well, but it also has a lot to do with our work. Okay, then we have the cups, which are water. They are the realm of emotion, of healing, everything to do with love and relationships, any type of love and relationship, from friendship to children to romantic love, healing, psychic and intuitive energies, grief and loss. And for a lot of people, the cups are the easiest to get into when they start learning. The cups are kind of like the suit that people get straight away. And that's because most of us have had, well, we've all had relationships with siblings, parents, friends, lovers, you know, there's all that with ourselves. Relationships tend to be the thing that we grasp and get very quickly. And then we have the pentacles, and the pentacles can also be called coins, but in the Rider-Waite-Smith it's pentacles. And this represents to me earth, the material world, our physical bodies, health, home, money, finances, and family. So the material world and money sometimes kind of get lumped into the work stuff, and it can, but it's also about, you know, how we deal with abundance, how we deal with our money values, how we deal with our finances for our families. But it's also with the physical world. So anything to do with like physical shit. So not like our bodies, our homes, our cars, anything that is to do with the material world. So it's not just about work, it can be, but I find that career-wise or vision-wise or creation-wise, the wands come up more. Like people who have a job and just kind of like do a job, then this is more around like the pentacles. But that kind of finessing, I feel, really comes with reading for a while and getting to know the aspects of your decks and how you like to read and what preferences you have and how you question the tarot and how you read all these things together. So we have the Major Arcana, the Minor Arcana, the Court, and then interwoven into all that, the elemental aspects of those sections of the tarot. So these are just a few base meanings and functions of the suits, elements, and structure of a tarot deck. But it will help you identify out major themes. And when you do read, and when you're learning to read, you can actually have a look at like how many of these different elements come into play. How many Major Arcana cards coming up? How many of the Minor Arcana are coming up? And if you look at that and then look at the structure of and the section of the deck, you're going to have a really good idea of what's coming into play for that person and what's the most important thing, what's on their mind, where the situation is at. So there you have it, my lovelies, a look at the different sections of a tarot deck. I hope you found this helpful, and I will see you for part 4 of my Tarot for Beginners series soon.